If Texas goes blue, goes Democrat, it's over. Republicans cannot win a presidential election without Texas. America would then be a one-party state.
I'm digging all of these Donald Trump advertisements. YouTube's kind of awesome right now. Now, if only they could get rid of these god-awful Fred Armisen ads. Anyways, I've got a 3-part video for you today. I'll put timestamps in the description in case you want to skip parts. Part 1. The 2020 election. We're only a few months away from the election? Are you guys excited? I can't say that I am. So far, no debates. No Trump rallies. Almost no pre-election coverage at all by the media. What the fuck is going on? Back in 2016, the election was edge-of-your-seat entertainment. Donald Trump was absolutely hilarious. Him constantly feuding with the media and holding these massive rallies was nothing but awesome. Hillary Clinton was also great. Not as a candidate, but as a source of pure entertainment. Everyone who worked for her was some sort of blundering idiot. The leaks and the email hacks showed just how corrupt she was. Of course, who could forget the embarrassing relationship between her campaign and Anthony Let Me Show You My Wiener. And let's not forget about that email server investigation. According to the media, Hillary Clinton was going to crush Trump. I never believed that this would happen though. I was always convinced that Trump would win in a blowout. As it turned out, I was 100% right. What I'm about to say may surprise you. Back in the 2012 election, I voted for Barack Obama. Yeah, I voted for someone I hated. The king of the neoliberals. A living pile of donkey shit so conceited and smug that he put Patrick Deneen's book on his recommended reading list. It'd be like if Donald Trump sarcastically recommended people read White Fragility. Why'd I vote for him then? It's not that I thought that he was any better than Mitt Romney. I voted Obama because I didn't want to vote for a loser. For one, I didn't like Mitt Romney, but secondly, I knew he was unpalatable to the voters. And don't get me started on Gary Lizard Johnson. With Mitt Romney as a Republican nominee, why would the Libertarian Party even bother fielding a candidate? Why wouldn't you just vote for Mitt Romney? It makes no sense. I thought the exact same thing about Hillary Clinton in 2016. People aren't going to vote for someone with no charisma, no message, and a lifetime career of corruption and bullshit. Mitt Romney and Hillary Clinton were both massive losers. However, when it comes to being a loser, nobody beats Joe Biden. Let's put politics aside. People aren't going to want to vote for someone who they believe may be demented. Voters don't like voting for a coward who's hid for months prior to the election in a bunker. No one wants to vote for someone with no message. Someone who hasn't even bothered to campaign. Most Americans don't want some mentally incompetent person running a government during a crisis. They don't want a neoliberal CIA-controlled deep state covertly running the country. Every bit of common sense that I have says that Joe Biden is going to lose the election. Even people on the left hate Joe Biden and won't vote for him. Kamala Harris was a terrible VP choice. You've already alienated anyone with a positive view of law enforcement. Picking a former prosecutor isn't going to win these people back. But I'm sure Kamala's going to get out the black vote, right? Yeah, about that. If you're a Democrat and you're worried black people aren't going to vote for you, you're already fucked. So I'd say that that smell in the air isn't from the rusty boat we're in. It's blood in the water. I expect Joe Biden to lose big. I'd go even further though. There are a few things that could happen that should guarantee Trump a victory. If one of these things happens and Trump still manages to lose, I would consider the results of the election to be fraudulent. Number 1. Joe Biden refuses to debate. He'll look like a coward if he does this. Everyone will think that it's true that he has dementia. Number 2. Joe Biden does show up and debate Trump, but during the debate, it's obvious that he does have dementia or some sort of compromised mental acuity. Number 3. Joe Biden cheats during the debate. For example, it's revealed that someone is feeding him answers through an earpiece. If he claims that he's too sick to debate and Kamala takes his place, I'd consider that a form of cheating. Number 4. Joe Biden drops out and Kamala Harris takes his place. If this was something that was necessary, it should have been done a long time ago. Voters will be pissed off if they try and do this right before the election. Anyways, moving on. Part 2. If Texas goes blue. If Texas goes blue, we're all fucked, right? That's what conservatives have been saying for years. In the short term, I believe that absolutely is true. However, I have a proposal for how conservatives can eventually overcome this. A plan that doesn't involve cucking out on social conservatism. First of all, we ought to recognize the fact that Texas going blue is inevitable. Now sure, we can absolutely vote for Trump. We can also vote for people who think like Trump after Trump is gone. However, we can't expect to win every single presidential election for all of eternity. Eventually, a Democrat or a rhino is going to win. And at that point, the floodgates will be opened and Texas will turn blue. To prepare for this crisis, we need to understand what's causing it. Many conservatives will correctly point to the fact that non-white immigrants always vote Democrat. And if they don't for some reason, then their kids will. Now, some conservatives use this fact as a call for some sort of extreme reaction. Reactions like ending democracy or splitting the United States into various ethno-states. If you believe you have some secret plan that you can enact that will create the conservative superstate, don't let me stand in your way. Otherwise, let me provide you with my lazy, no-effort way that conservatives can deal with this crisis. Why do minorities all vote for Democrats? Africa, the Middle East, Asia, they tend to be pretty conservative compared to the US or Europe. Latin America is more mixed, but it definitely has its fair share of conservatives. Minorities vote Democrat because Democrats defend a power structure that gives them special privileges. Under the Civil Rights Act, all employers and institutions are always assumed to be racist. For example, in a discrimination lawsuit, companies are expected to prove that they aren't being racist. The only way for them to do this is to create evidence of non-racism. The Civil Rights Act, by its very design, created political correctness. Companies prominently advertised just how non-racist they were. Any person who said or did anything remotely racist had to be punished, fined, or exiled. If companies allowed its employees to say things that could be interpreted as racist, they risked it being used as evidence against them in a lawsuit. A lawsuit where the company was already presumed to be guilty. PC culture was astroturfed and widely disliked by most Americans. Just look at any comedian from the 80s or 90s. Everyone recognized that PC culture existed, but everyone hated it. Since that time, America's culture has been eviscerated by liberalism and replaced with consumerism. People identify themselves through the things that they like to consume. Base sexual appetites represent the shallowest of human desires. They're now considered a core component of some people's identity, though. At the same time, church attendance has declined considerably. This lack of authentic culture and morality has left people confused. So confused that they now mistake the astroturfed PC culture as a real culture and morality. Thus, PC culture has evolved into woke culture. So why do all minorities vote Democrat? Conservatives aren't trying to repeal the Civil Rights Act. However, conservatives do criticize PC culture. The Civil Rights Act and PC culture are inseparable, though. Conservatives who criticize PC culture are unknowingly attacking the power structure of civil rights. That's why minorities will always vote Democrat. The woke left is convinced that everything is racist, just like the Civil Rights Act presumes that it is. However, becoming woke isn't going to solve any racial disparities. The left increasingly realizes it is not enough simply to not discriminate. To get the outcomes that they want, they need to discriminate against whites. Discriminating against whites is illegal, though. It also violates the Civil Rights Act. Unlike minorities, us whites don't get this magical presumption that we're always being discriminated against. However, explicit and overt discrimination against white people is still prohibited. In California, a ballot proposition has been proposed by the left to repeal California's own civil rights law. The proponents of this are leftists who want to overtly discriminate against white people. Here's my proposal. We know that woke culture comes from PC culture. We know that PC culture comes from the Civil Rights Act. If we get rid of the Civil Rights Act, we deprive the engine of wokeness of its fuel. So let's let the left repeal the civil rights laws. We shouldn't defend them. These are laws supported by centrist liberals. We're conservatives. We're not liberals. The conservative-liberal alliance is not worth preserving if it results in conservatives constantly getting fucked over. Remember when Jordan Peterson attacked Brett Kavanaugh? What about Sam Harris's obnoxious Trump derangement syndrome? Yeah, fuck liberals. I don't give a shit about their civil rights law. It just made everything worse for everyone. Yet another example of liberalism failing. If getting rid of the Civil Rights Act benefits conservatives in the long run, I say go for it. The end of the Civil Rights Act would spell an end to blue Texas. If racial minorities have no political incentive to vote for Democrats, they'll stop doing so. Without the privileges afforded by the Civil Rights Act, there's no reason for ethnic minorities to vote for Democrats. When minorities realize this, the electoral landscape will change dramatically. I believe we'll see a conservative right-wing surge unprecedented in U.S. history. The left will be panicking as California goes red. Part 3. Surviving Blue Texas. Now I know some of you watching this are probably pissed. Leftists have taken over and they want to repeal the civil rights law in order to discriminate against whites. Here's this asshole, the prosecutor, basically telling us to just let them do it. Look, I'm not here to jerk you off. Sometimes you have to shove seeds in the shit in order to grow food that you can eat. Even if we deprive the woke train of its fuel, it's not going to stop immediately. Removing the Civil Rights Act is like derailing the train. By doing so, we'll stop it eventually, but not before it causes a lot of damage and chaos. I'm not going to beat around the bush. In the interim, things are going to be terrible for white people and conservatives. If you're an Asian or Hispanic and think that you're immune from this, don't be so naive. As long as blacks are above you in the progressive stack, they have privilege over you. Don't think that the system isn't going to be used against you. Believe me, it will be. Just look at the transgendered woman who got robbed and the shit beaten out of her in Portland the other day. There's no reason for us to lose hope though. We can survive and even thrive during this crisis. The fact that we already know that this is coming is in and of itself a massive advantage. The first thing that we ought to do is to try and keep Texas red as long as possible. Therefore, we ought to vote for Trump in the next election. In the next presidential election, we ought to throw our support behind a Republican who also has a hardline immigration policy. Now, like I said earlier, Texas will inevitably turn blue, but the longer we delay it, the more time it buys us. So now that we know what's coming, how do we prepare? Well, the first thing that you should do is start saving money. Here's some ways that you can do it. Number 1. Live with roommates or family members. Number 2. Don't go to college. It's a waste of money. The jobs that might open up to you are going to be with woke corporations. Furthermore, these corporations will eliminate your job as soon as AI technology or offshoring allows them to. Number 3. For entertainment, an internet subscription and library membership ought to suffice. Number 4. If at all possible, avoid owning a car. It's a massive waste of money. So what's the point of saving all this money? Well, the goal is to try and make yourself independent of woke capitalism. If your income comes from your own business or investments, then you'll actually get to be free. You can't be discriminated against. They can't cancel you. Let's say you buy a stand at a mall for $10,000. You work the stand full time and you make $40,000 in profits annually. After you save another $10,000, you buy a second stand. Now you're making $80,000, but you have to hire an employee, which costs you $30,000. Now your net income is $50,000. Now let's assume you save up $20,000. You can buy 2 more stands now. You have to hire a new employee though, this time for $40,000 due to additional hours. Let's say you also have to increase your first employee's hours, so he's now making $40,000 a year as well. At this point, you're making $80,000 a year in profits. You have no boss and no debt. In fact, 2 people actually work for you. If you don't like the shit that they're posting on social media, you can fire their asses. This all cost you $40,000, which is about what 1 year of college cost. Now don't bother starting a business dependent on some sort of bullshit virtual platform. YouTube is not a good place to start a business. Neither is selling shit on Amazon or collecting donations from Patreon. These platforms have shown that they are just as willing to censor or cancel people as any employer would be. They're far from fair and independent marketplaces. I like the idea of investing in a business because it gives you total control. If you operate your business virtuously and save money as much as possible, you should do well for yourself. However, there are other things you can invest in. Stocks and bonds can be a cheaper way of investing without as much payoff. Still, if you can consistently save money and buy more of them, you'll grow your wealth and reduce risk over time. If you happen to be wealthy, investing in real estate is also an option. Now, by wealthy, I mean you have enough money that you could buy a house without having to borrow money to pay for it. If this is an option for you, then go on Zillow every day for several months, looking at houses around the price you're willing to spend. When you see one for sale that seems unusually low, check it out and make an offer that's even lower than the already low list price. Keep doing this until someone accepts one of your shitty offers. When you end up buying a house, buy it as an LLC to avoid paying taxes when you later sell it at a profit. Wait for the house to appreciate in value and then sell it. Now you can afford to buy an even more expensive house. So start scoping out Zillow and checking out the houses that sell for around the same price. Just repeat what you did previously. You can keep doing this up until a point where you're buying apartment buildings. And obviously, avoid living or doing business in left-wing cities. Your investments, whatever form they take, aren't safe if the police are defunded. Texas going blue just means we lose the federal government. There'll still be plenty of red states out there. Anyways, I know stuff's been pretty depressing out there recently. You know, the 5-year-old boy that was murdered and all of that stuff. So I hope this video white pills you somewhat and gives you some hope. That was my intention anyways. If you like this video and you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please support small YouTube channels like mine by subscribing. Thanks.